The 2021 summit is a collaboration between LIM College and FashionDex.com. This year's sponsors are Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. I would like to invite Nancy Miller to come and welcome you all. Nancy.
Thank you, Monica. I'd like to begin by introducing myself. I'm Nancy Miller. I'm the chair of fashion merchandising and marketing here at LIM College. And it's wonderful to have you all here, both near and far, on behalf of the college, where sustainability is part not only of our curriculum, but part of our core values. It is my honor to kick off the 4th Annual Sustainability Summit. Today, we have assembled many thought leaders and agents of change. We have lots of speakers. We have students who are going to be a part of today. And I think you're going to learn and share and converse. So again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of LIM College and FashionDex.
So welcome back to the final panel of the Fashion and Sustainability Summit. This has been a collaboration of LIM College and FashionDex. Our sponsors are Tex World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. Finally, for our last panel, we're having a conversation on sustainability at Dr. Scholl's Popsockets. We do have Emily Siegel here, Popsockets, Andy Burton from Dr. Scholl's, Katie Moore from Dr. Scholl's. Our moderators are Terrence Coffey from LIM College, Jenna Fillingary of LIM College, and Callie Compton of LIM College. Now I'd like to turn this over to Terrence. Terrence, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. So delighted to be here this afternoon for this last round. So hi, Katie. Hi, Callie. Hi, Emily and Jenna. So excited to be with you for this last session this afternoon. Let's get the conversation started. So for the panelists, could each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves and in a few words, how you define sustainability? Emily, if you would like to start, we can start there.
Sure. I'm Emily Siegel. I'm Vice President of Design, Merchandising, and Brand Partnerships for Popsockets. About myself, I studied fashion design. I was an apparel designer for many years and somehow stumbled into product design. And so I've been over here in product for about 10 years now. Sustainability to me is being able to live life, keeping up with our values and our systems without affecting the future.
Katie.
Hey, Terrence. So glad to be back to this panel again. My name's Katie Moore. I'm Senior Director of Design at Dr. Scholl's. I have my background in graphic design and similar to Emily, kind of fell into footwear design. Wasn't something I was really thinking of, but been doing it for about 14 years now. Not really great at math. I'm doing it a long time and I love it. And as of lately, really started to, I guess we've been on a sustainable journey on our brand for almost 4 years now. And, you know, sustainability for me, it's really about the future. I have 3 young children and I think about, you know, what we're leaving for them. You know, we love to be outside, we love to hike. You know, there's that saying of leave no trace. And I like to think about that in my life in general, or, you know, obviously there's no leave no trace. If you're trying to create product, you know, leave it better than you found it. So that's kind of when I think about sustainability, what's in my headspace.
My name's Andy. I'm having a working mom moment. I hope everyone can understand that right now. Thank you. My reinforcements are on the way. So it should be any moment when dad gets home. But my name's Andy Burton. I'm representing our parent company, Caleris. I work on innovation, sourcing, and research and development specifically for sustainability within our brands. And sustainability to me, as everyone can tell, I have a baby, and you know, this is his future. This is our family's future. So really making decisions on a daily basis that are the better choices for our environment and our for future generations.
Turn it over to the next question and let Kelly ask the panel the next question.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be talking to all of you today. So what I would like to ask is, how are you infusing sustainable and ethical practices into your collections? So Emily, if you would like to start.
Sure. Last year, we did a really big deep dive into our products and into the materials that are available in the market. We looked at everything from post-consumer recycled plastics to bio-based plastics and compostable plastics, and ultimately landing on bio-based plastics as the product that could work for what we do and the quality that we require for pop sockets. And with that, we launched our Pop Grit plant, Earth Day 2021. We're really excited about it. It's made, a third of the materials are made from bio-based plastics, and it's doing really well. So we're now looking at how can we incorporate that material into more of our products going forward. So it's a really exciting product. It's doing really well. We're excited to expand it.
Awesome. That sounds really great. It's really great to see that you're, looking at different products and things and different materials that you can use to incorporate into your products. And that's super exciting that you did a launch for Earth Day. So it's really great. So Katie, if you'd like to talk about some of the ethical practices that are being infused into your collections.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we work on footwear. So there's several components. It's not just one. You're talking about soft goods and hard goods. So when we started on our sustainable journey, when you think about sustainability, it's very overwhelming. There's many things you could do. So we were like, okay, let's not try to boil the water. Let's pick one material. So we focused on our more of our poly-based materials. Interestingly enough, we first started to try to go down a path of using like bamboo. Dr. Scholl's is known for wood, and we were trying to like tie in, oh, natural fibers, this will be great. We go down this path, we're doing this development with bamboo fibers. We get the article and they're basically telling us that, this is rayon. It's not, I mean, we didn't actually, it wasn't actually what we wanted to be, and we couldn't get the certifications and all these things, but they're like, hey, we do have recycled materials. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So we really started a path with just one material, focusing on our lining, changing that polyester base to be a recycled polyester base. Started on one shoe, one material, and then now we've been able, 3 years later, every single one of our polyester based materials, we try to incorporate it to have recycled materials as much as possible. So that was kind of the foundational start. And that's like, again, kind of a low hanging fruit. But we've also, similar to what Popsockets is doing, also looking into bio-based now. We've been looking into different ways that we can do things with threads, with synthetic materials, with leathers, making sure we're using leathers that are through Leather Working Group, which audits the tanneries to make sure that they're doing ethical practices. We also were trying to figure out how to incorporate things into our bottoms, which are made out of EVA or TPR. So there's a lot of work that's done around research, and that's where Andy comes in. She's our sustainability guru. So Andy, I don't know if you want to jump in and add anything to that, but for the most part, it's kind of starting small and then seeing what else we can do to grow and constantly evolving it. Recycled seemed like the easy first step. Now we're looking into bio. I'm figuring out the price of those things as well as another consideration.
Exactly. And like Katie said, Dr. Scholl's was kind of our brand that started looking into these things first, probably 3.5 years ago, maybe almost 4 years ago now. And from there, the community within Caleres kind of grew, and we're learning off of each other and we're collaborating. So now, we have 15 brands within Caleres, and all of these brands are able to introduce, we call them environmentally preferred materials in our lines after learnings from, brands 3 years ago. And to date, 66% of our leathers are sourced in the Leather Working Group. And that's just one statistic that we're really proud of, to hopefully get to 100% by 2025.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really interesting to see how you're taking each aspects of the products and really like taking each piece and trying to make sure that you're doing the most that you can with sustainability when you're pulling in those resources for those products. So one thing I would like to ask all of you relating to products again is, so all of your companies use relevant materials such as wood, fur, plastic, and rubber, which are all topics you've been talking about. So do costs go up when trying to adapt more sustainable versions of these same products? So Emily, if you want to start talking about how Popsocket handles that.
Well, yeah, costs do go up. We know that the more sustainable options are going to be more expensive, but when we're thinking about the future and we're thinking about where we want to take the brand, we just stomach those costs. And, we know that this is what's required to build a better future. So they are more expensive, but we accept that.
Great, yes. Of course, yeah. Accepting those costs is just a part of it. But yeah, so Katie or Andy, would you like to elaborate on how those costs kind of come into play when you're working with sustainable materials?
I think the most important thing, and I agree with Popsockets, is that costs currently are going up more in some materials than others. But I think where we're going to win is when, all of these brands that are now taking a step in the right direction are, asking for these choices, and then soon the costs will go down because they're more available in the marketplace and the more available at our suppliers.
Yeah, one thing we've always talked about when we talk about sustainability, as Andy mentioned, we're one brand of 15 brands in our house, and it's interesting. We've really been, each brand kind of acts as their own little area, own little department, and we haven't really been great about sharing information because we all want to win, right? But since we started doing sustainability, a lot of that culture has changed in our own building, and when we talk about sustainability, collaboration is key. Across brands, across industries, like the more that we collaborate together and share these processes and these materials together, that's when the prices really go down too. It's all like, it's a win-win-win situation if we all can kind of, understand and start to use the same processes and think the same way. That makes it more affordable too.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. Collaboration has definitely been a theme from all of the conversations today. That's the only way that we can make sustainability work within the fashion industry and as well as the accessories industry. So I'm going to pass it over to Jenna to ask some more questions.
We actually have a follow-up to the one that we were just talking about. So as we know, by adapting these sustainable products and you're integrating them into your original products, how are you keeping the price within reach for your customers and giving them a sustainable product without having it too far out of reach for them as well? And Emily, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, I'll keep going first. We do, since the materials are more expensive, we do have to increase our pricing a bit, but ultimately we absorb a lot of that ourselves. We don't want to offer something that feels out of reach to our consumers or pushes it out of value for them. So I think this story is really important to get out there that we are moving in this direction. And as Dr. Scholl was saying, as we grow this material and are able to add it into other products, we'll be able to offer better pricing. But for now, most of it's just absorbed by the company.
Yeah, I would say the same for Dr. Scholl. And it's funny, when we started our journey, leadership, it was very much a passion project with Andy and I feeling really strongly about infusing sustainability into the product. And you've got leaders and who were like, okay, we can get on board with this, but you have to be careful about how we can't really raise the retails that much. The consumer, we don't think is going to pay that much more. Understood. So challenge accepted. So we really did try to partner with, again, collaboration, partner with the factories, work with them, explain to them, like, this is what we're trying to do. Will you help us? And that really actually, we have one particular supplier, Goldyear, we work with, we built a great relationship with them. They were really excited about the project. They too were also trying to go down the same path. So, we ended up doing like bulk buys. So you buy a lot of the material, we promised we're going to use it, and we do. And then now we're able, again, use these amongst their other brands that we have too. So that's been able to help us keep it, within our price range. We actually, one of our mottos or tagline actually that's in almost all of our insoles is sustainable comfort for all. It's very important that what we do is accessible to everybody in the reach of anyone, even if they loved our product before we started using sustainability. Now we just have this added benefit for them.
And I think some places, like Katie said, we're making it work with a lot of our brands. And then in some cases where costs, are going up a couple dollars, this is where I think information is key to the consumers. And we're actually finding that if we tell the consumer the story and we said, hey, this is made with global recycled standard polyester. And what this means is they have strict chemical, environmental, and social standards around their certified material. And a consumer, takes that in, thinks about if that fits he or she's values, and it gives them the choice to pay a little bit extra. And we're finding in some cases, most cases, that's a choice that they're willing to make.
Yes, I definitely agree with that most customers are willing to pay that extra if they know that their product is for the better. And I think that that is a huge thing, a big reason why companies should continue to be more transparent with their customers. So another question that I have for each of you is often the conversation about sustainability is centering around clothes, and then accessories we kind of just push to the side and forget about. But I would love to know, how does sustainability in your supply chain and just in general, how does it differ from accessories, if it does, to clothes? Is there any processes? What materials are different? Is the supply chain shorter or longer? All that kind of stuff. Andy, if you'd love to start with that one.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different than textiles or clothing for shoes. There can be 20, 30 parts of a shoe, mixing soft goods and hard goods and glues. And the process is a shoe can touch up to 300 hands in the process of making it. So it is a lot different. And that's where design comes into play when thinking about the sustainability of the shoe, is considering all these different pieces and parts, as opposed to a shirt that you're thinking about one or two maybe materials.
So for us, the materials and the products are different from fashion, from accessories, but ultimately, principles of sustainability are universal. So we think about that and how to minimize our footprint across every element that goes into a product. So whether it's design, materials, energy, fair labor, packaging, shipping, all of those things, I do think cross over, but the materials are different.
Right, thank you for that. I'm going to pass it over to Terrence for the next question.
So thank you for that, Jenna. My next question is your companies striving to implement a circular strategy? If so, or what has been your most successful sustainable strategy?
I'll go
You
ahead
can start.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we are offering a free recycling program. So we can recycle all old Popsockets. And we also accept any phone case from any brand that you can send. And we are doing that through a partnership with TerraCycle, which is a really amazing company. So this past summer, we launched a really cool initiative where we swapped all of our mailers for completely recycled mailers, and we offer a free label in there as well. So you can send back your old Popsocket, you can send back your old phone cases, as everyone's upgrading to new phones, year to year, and we'll recycle them for you.
Thank you for that, Emily. I'm going to pass the mic over to Katie.
That's amazing, Emily. We've been conversations with TerraCycle as well, but obviously in footwear, it's really tricky. Again, like we talked about, lots of pieces and parts. It's not like a t-shirt or a piece of clothing where you can, try to recycle that material. So we've had lots of conversations around this. You know, we also talk about the resell piece of this, but that's also tricky because the shoes just wear differently than clothing. And so sometimes even just donating them or doing nothing can be a challenge for some people to figure out, like, what do I do with these old shoes? So I know that there are processes and things that that are on in the innovation pipeline. So we're continuing to think about that. But I think where we can have the most impact, and I'll have Andy jump in on this because she's my expert on this, but is really at the front end of what we're doing. So Andy, do you want to kind of explain, I know you and I were talking about this earlier, how, yes, we'd love to get to a circular part, but since it's really, really challenging right now, let's see what we can do up front to help mitigate some of that.
Exactly. And like one of my favorite articles is from Science Based Targets. They came out with a specific paper for the footwear and apparel sector a couple years ago, and it showed a life cycle analysis of emissions by stage, and it showed that actually 77% of footwear emissions come from material and material processing. So at the moment, I feel like where we can get the most bang for our buck and affect our life cycle the most right now is really hitting on those environmentally preferred materials. How are our materials processed? Where are they processed? What certifications are we using? And of course, we're looking at pre-life, like designing in 3D technology, all the way to how are we shipping our shoes? Like Katie said, how can we have them be recyclable, or how can they be, made for disassembly? But we really feel like concentrating right now on cleaning up our materials as much as possible.
Thanks for that feedback, Andy. We have someone from our audience. We have Gail Robbins. She has her hand up for a question. We would love to hear from you, Gail. Could you please unmute and state your question?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I have a question. I began my career with Cotton Incorporated, and Cotton Incorporated was a trade organization that was funded by America's cotton growers. And their goal was to raise awareness about the benefits of cotton. So they had two legs. They had the Cotton Works Fabric Library, and they talked to designers, but the other leg was talking to the consumers. So, and I feel like the missing piece, you were talking earlier, Andy, about something costing a little bit more, and perhaps there's a lack of communication to the consumer, so the consumer truly understands why something costs a little bit more, and that there's a story behind it, because we communicate in stories. So, okay, here's my question. Is there an organization? I'm sorry, that was a long shaggy dog story.
That's okay.
Is there an organization that you know about that does provide a similar service where they help designers locate? I mean, I know there is an organization that helps designers locate fabrics, but then communicates to the consumer in a major way why things would be more expensive.
I know brands like, for example, Lensing Tencel. They provide marketing content for brands if you use some of their products. We're looking at some of their materials for fall 22 and spring 23, as well as things like a Global Recycled Standard shoe can have a hang tag on it that talks about what the shoe is made out of. But I do think a lot of the education should come from the brands. They're specialists in this field. The designers know these shoes front to back. The developers know the shoes front to back. So I think it's a collaboration between these certified fabric suppliers and the brands to work together to communicate that to consumers.
How does your company balance the risk and opportunities of global sustainable practices?
A lot of our initiatives are coming from the stakeholders who want to see sustainability and ethics prioritized. So currently we're just looking at all different pieces of the business. So, from the products to fair labor and everything, we look at our factories, we have those audited to make sure we post our factories. So we prioritize it on every level. So on all components of the business. So we've started with some products. We're excited to expand that. We're almost fully accredited in our fair labor practices. So just holistically across the brand, what can we do and how do we keep driving the business in a more sustainable way?
I think one of the biggest risks we're seeing right now is the idea of greenwashing. And it's really important to us to make sure that we know what we're doing. What we're doing is the right thing to do, that we are being truthful to consumers, we're being truthful to ourselves. And the best way to do this, I think from the back end, is to make sure we have those certifications, make sure then we can attach them to the correct PO, make sure everything is flowing through our systems correctly. So when we have this material or we have this shoe, we know what we're saying about it is right, and then we're putting our best foot forward.
Yeah, so you were talking about the importance of greenwashing, and I definitely think that that's something that consumers are able to see through, especially you mentioned a lot of consumers are really looking for more sustainable practices and they're willing to pay those costs. So have your customers demanded for a shift to have more responsible practices, or has this really just come from within the brand and the retailers and the people that you have been working with? So Emily, you can answer that question first if you'd like.
Sure. For us, it really comes from the brand. It comes from our leadership. It's where we want to take the business. Our owner and founder is a strict vegan and has been for many years. So we've been a vegan company for years. We've never used leather or feathers or wool or anything that is an animal byproduct from the start of the company. So it's not a demand that we're seeing from the consumer, although we anticipate that coming. So we just want to be prepared and stand and be authentic. Since we started this way, we're just continually thinking about how to grow it.
Great. It's really interesting to see how you started from the brand and it started that way. It wasn't necessarily something that like the customers were trying to demand for, but a lot of customers, I'm sure, they do really value those sustainable practices that you're doing over at Popsockets. So thank you.
Yeah.
Katie, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say the same as what Emily was saying with Popsockets. It for us in Dr. Scholl's, it started with the brand. It started with us designers, seeing, what's going on around us, understanding, we know what's in the process and everything, and how can we improve and how can we make it better? We are the brand, we are the consumer as well. And so if we're wanting this change, we can only anticipate that our consumers buying our shoes will feel the same way. And there's, again, for us, it was trying to keep it cost neutral as possible, but still provide these benefit materials that, are just better for the earth. And, I feel like it's a win-win situation for all. And it's about, for us, it was about, telling our stories as far as like why we wanted to do this. It was, not for the money, not for the consumer, because it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. I think that's really great. Andy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Katie said it right. I mean, it just came from us, the brand, and also as consumers, we just wanted to do better.
Exactly. I think that's the only way that we can lead to a sustainable future, is everyone just doing the best that they can. So I don't have any questions currently, but if Jenna or Terrence have any more questions, I think that would be great. I'll turn it over to them.
Yeah, I'd love to keep going with the conversation that we're having about, sustainability and how it's ingrained in each of your companies, I wanted to know, I know, Emily, you're talking about how the idea of not using animal products was already kind of ingrained in the company. I'm wondering, is the idea of sustainability and all of the efforts that you guys are putting forth, is that also ingrained in the rest of your employees? And is that idea spread out throughout your brand? And is everybody kind of aware of what you're working on, is essentially my question.
That's a good question. They are. We are, it's ingrained because we started as not using any animal byproducts, but we weren't fully vegan. And about 2 years ago, we eliminated any non-vegan snacks from the office pre-pandemic. So there was like a big shift in awareness of, oh my gosh, like peanut M&M, everything left, anything that was not fully vegan left. When you go out to dinner or order food in, anything that was going to be expense needed to be vegan, if not vegetarian. So everyone feels that. But as far as sustainability with the products that we're doing and the initiatives that we're creating, we have a full impact team. We had a program for many years called Poptivism, where we created product. Any of our customers could go and create a product and pick their charity of their choice, and we would donate on their behalf. And that whole program is being revamped from our new impact team, and communication is not only generating internally within the company, but pretty soon we'll be communicating that outwards as well.
I have a question too. Thank you for that, Emily. I'm really big on community initiatives, and I would like to know, how do we develop a system that will prepare people to understand sustainability and practice in their lives?
Is that for me, that question?
That for any of you.
I'm going to think on that. I'll let Andy. I feel like you're going to have something off the cuff for that.
I think it's mostly just about information. I think that if anyone truly understands what is necessary to have, the best future for future generations, that, humans are innately good, I think, and that they'll want to make better choices. So I think it's really just getting the information out there to as many people as possible, like not in a scary way, but just like, there needs to be a shift, and these are your options, and, just laying a path for people to walk.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead with the
I agree
comment.
100%. So pre-pandemic, when we used to go in the office all the time, we actually had Andy and I were a part of a sustainability committee that would set up, like we had, what was it, the recycling, what was her name? The recycling lady who came in, she was so awesome. She came in and basically explained recycling to everybody, anyone who wanted to come, and just again, education, as Andy was saying, like if you don't know, you don't know. And, and it's like, we're such in an information age right now. And that's why this younger generation is so much smarter than us, because they do have information at their fingertips all the time, and they're just seeing it more. And so the more that we can educate and share, what are best practices, what are things that we can do, small little things that we can do to make a difference. It may, one little thing can make a huge difference. One of my favorite quotes in this, because I love quotes, one of my favorite quotes were on sustainability is, when you think about sustainability, you're like, oh, I'm just one person, but said 7 billion people. Like, that impact that you can do, one little change can make a huge impact. So how do you just continually like let people know, or educate, and or even self-learn things that you can do better?
And also being a representative of how you would like the world to be, not that I'm like a global like perfect citizen, but like people ask me, well, what trash bags do you buy? And I have the link ready to go, like, here's my bio-based trash bags, or like, what shampoo do you use? So just like, being a better person yourself, and then, passing it along.
Thank you for that feedback, all of you. Do you think that there's a certain age that this kind of information should be taught to, so that way it could the conversation, just the doings in the sustainable space. Do you think that it should be a certain age that this kind of information should be taught to?
I can jump in on this, but I feel like every age, I feel like, again, like younger generation is going to be so much more aware and knowledgeable about things that maybe the older generations aren't. So, I think, I think about my children, they're growing up in a very different way. Their schools have compost bins and recycling. I mean, my schools did not have that, so there's just a different level of awareness that's already innately happening for the younger generation, where I think the education can happen as the older generation, ironically. Like, I feel like, they've kind of set in their ways, or they know how things were, and things are just different now. And, how do you educate them and share with them things that maybe they need to change about their daily lives too?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think in this age of technology and awareness, the generation Gen Z is so different than Gen X, and they're exposed to so much more that's going on in the world, and they're gonna know a global pandemic, from such a young age, that their desires and wants are going to be really different. And so kind of capturing that, and how do we embody and embrace those feelings that they have from the world we live in today, and how do we start teaching them at a younger age so that they can make a real change in this world?
Thank you for that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly and see if she has any other questions.
I actually wanted to add something with that conversation that we had, if that's okay.
Okay.
I was just to kind of continue on with that conversation. I think it's really interesting that we, like, younger generations are Katie, like you said, there is a compost bin in their school already. They don't even have to like ask for that. Whereas growing up, I didn't have that. I don't even know if we had like recycling bins in my classrooms, and like you would have to ask for that to be there. So I'm wondering now if younger generations almost kind of expect this to be the norm and not have to ask for brands to be doing the right thing. It should just already be happening,
100%. We talk about this a lot, especially some of our brands that do age a little bit younger for a younger consumer. It's like, if you aren't doing this, you're out of their scope. Like, you're not even in the consideration set. The values, the younger generations, we know when they think about companies, it's not about the bottom line for them. It's like, what are their values? What do they stand for? And if you don't have sustainability or social impact, something of that nature in your ethos, you're not going to be in their consideration set, I feel like.
Yeah, it's like consumers are buying the brand and the ethos, not the product.
Right. It's like everything else that comes along with purchasing the product, everything else. It's also really cool because both of your brands are selling products to two totally different age groups and customer groups. I think Popsockets really adhere to younger generations, and Dr. Scholl's, I feel like, is like a need-based thing for the older generation. So how do you guys like communicate that how do you communicate your sustainability ideas and objectives that you're working on to your customers that maybe some might not be interested in them?
So we're working on that right now. I don't really have like 100% answer. We've launched our first pot plant product. We are reworking our full impact story right now and how to communicate that out. But ultimately, we think too about who we're partnering with from different brands and influencers. And we want to make sure that those partners are able to tell the story that we want to tell, that represents our brand and our values. So I think it's on so many levels that you need communication on to get to the consumer. Our retail packaging, anywhere we can on our website, it's going to be as prominent as we can make it.
Yeah, and for Dr. Scholl's, it's it's funny, our brand. When you think of Dr. Scholl's, you think of, a lot of people don't even think about shoes. Honestly, they think about wart remover or insoles or something very like not very pleasant to, or like something that you need to have. We've worked really hard with the brand to try to age it down and think about, our ethos is really, it's been around comfort. So, we obviously want to make sure the shoes are comfortable, that they look good. And then obviously our newest is doing good. So to communicate to the consumer, all of our boxes, which are kind of one piece boxes, we're not trying to, when we do shipping, we don't want to have to put a box in a box. So our boxes do communicate the sustainability message. On some of our shoes, we actually have it actually on the outside of the shoe. We have our logo on the inside where it speaks about sustainability. On our website, obviously, and on our Instagram, we're constantly communicating that message as well. Actually, today we just had a post about, about sustainability and what to do around the holiday shopping and things like that. So, the message is definitely, in every way we can, we do try to communicate to them. As far as your question around around the older consumer who maybe doesn't really care about this. Again, it's for us, it's like it's the right thing to do for the brand. And if they choose not to buy the product because of that, then okay. But I don't think that someone's going to purposely not buy a product because it's sustainable. If anything, you might get someone in there to buy it because it is sustainable. So that's why we didn't really think about, it wasn't really consumer focused for the reasons we went down the sustainability path.
I'm going to send it to Callie now for a few more questions.
Yeah, of course. So we're talking all about education and, like communicating the sustainable efforts that all of your companies are making with sustainability. So one thing that's super important with sustainability, and especially with dealing with producing these accessories, is waste. And so I really want to ask how your companies are, reducing the amount of waste that is being put back into the planet. And also with that, I want to ask how you are managing your sustainable efforts and, putting numbers to these things so that you're able to communicate that to the customer so that the customers are able to, see how you're making these efforts. So Emily, you can start us off with that.
So we've started by eliminating as much paper as we can from all of our packaging. So we are really down. We, in some cases, we've recently launched our phone case collection. So we're really excited to expand to fully outfit your phone now. And there is no PET on those boxes. Most phone case boxes do have a PET window to protect the product, but we were able to eliminate that. So anywhere we can eliminate material or use recycled paper in our packaging, things like that, we are doing that. But again, we still haven't figured out quite the communication piece. It's really important. We want to get it right. And so we've got a team on it, and I'm confident once we have it, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, of course. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I value, your candor and saying, we're still working on this because this is all like a work in progress. You can't have all the answers right away about how to communicate these things. And so it's good that you're working on it at Popsockets. So Katie or Andy, would you like to answer that question about reducing waste and also how you're measuring your sustainable efforts when communicating that to customers?
Yeah, Andy, I'll take the reducing waste, and you can take the the other numbers piece of it.
You got it.
Perfect. So reducing waste. So as Emily mentioned, we also reduced our packaging as much as we can, as far as again, trying to do the one piece box, reducing our paper and things like that. But one thing that we're considering and thinking about in waste is in the sampling process. We used to go through like 6 rounds of pullovers or prototypes before we even get to a final line sample. Then we get these line samples and we order 3 pairs of them. And then we take, and those aren't even really, those are just to sell from. Those aren't even to go to market. And if you are lucky enough to have held on to right and left, you might be able to donate those pairs. So one of the things we really started looking at was trying to do our prototyping through 3D flattening. So through 3D program, doing all of our adjusting our line and our paper patterns through the 3D technology has actually eliminated a lot of sample and prototype waste. We're also trying to really, instead of blanket, we used to blanket order 3 pairs of everything for our big show. We're really thoughtfully going through, and each sample we are deciding how many pairs we really think we need and really ordering the minimal amount to try to sell from. Because again, at the end of the day, all of that is going to become waste. Another aspect that we're looking at is also, counting down our line plan process. So this is something we're thinking about at the very beginning, like how many shoes do we really need to design? Like, let's really be thoughtful and really considerate about, bringing in our SKU count, bringing our line down, is going to reduce a lot of waste. And also, just be, really be able to focus on those good shoes and sell those shoes that we know are going to be, the consumer's going to want. We're using things like First Insight. So using consumer insight testing before we even go to sample. So again, we're just making smarter decisions up front. So that way we're reducing the waste. It's something that, it's a part of, like, you really have to be thoughtful in the beginning of it and thinking of it that way versus getting at the end and trying to figure out how to manage your waste. We're trying to create less in the beginning in the first place. And then Andy, I don't know if you want to talk about how we measure all of our.
Yeah, I can talk numbers, but I also want to talk about, Katie mentioned all the work that design and development are doing on the front end, but then also on the back end when we're manufacturing the shoes. A big project this year is we're part of the Footwear Distributors of America's waste reduction program in collaboration with Elevate. And 7 key factories are a part of this project. And the goal is to reduce waste, to go from 0 waste to incineration. And the way to do that is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So reducing any unnecessary things in the process of making or manufacturing shoes. And then another big one is recycling. Just making the connection between, okay, so we have leftover synthetic material from the die cut of one of our shoes. We're connecting that factory with, say, a factory that makes phone accessories to use that material in smaller pieces that maybe a piece of footwear can't use, but a little hanging thing from like the end of a phone can use. So it's about recycling and making those connections instead of just throwing it away. And then last is taking anything that can't be recycled and making sure it's incinerated in a way where it goes back into energy. It's called energy recovery. That's not our first choice, but we're also making sure that it's not going into landfills. So that's a really cool project that we're working on like the back end that we're really proud of, and we're hopefully going to take part in the next round next year, but to be determined. And then as far as it's a really exciting project.
Yeah,
it's a really exciting project. Like just I worked for another footwear company in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, that actually was stationed inside the factory. So once you see it every day, that what's being created, to be able to reduce that would just make a huge impact. So that's one of the projects I'm like really interested in from like a personal standpoint.
I love that. So as we wrap up our final session, any of you, this goes to any of you on the panel, what has been your biggest win in terms of sustainability?
On this one, I get really excited. I would say, obviously we have numbers. We've diverted over 20 million plastic bottles. I mean, there's all these really great sustainability numbers, but I would say for me, the biggest win is, starting off with one shoe in one brand has turned into Andy being able to take on a role that is going to impact 15 brands and really impact, and then seeing how that's going to grow and getting all of our other designers excited about, going down this path and really thinking about their material choices. So for me, that's been the biggest win, and it's been the most rewarding and most exciting.
Okay, and so this goes, I have more and I can keep the questions going, but I'm going to wrap this up. So can you share what is ahead for your company in terms of your work towards your responsible practices, and what keeps you hopeful for what's to come?
So we're working outside of the bio-based plastics. We're also working on using true vegan leathers. I think that term vegan leather is misused. Most vegan leathers are made from petroleum-based materials. So we're doing a lot of work right now on how do we identify, if we can, if not, do we need to do it ourselves, materials that are truly vegan-based, that are plant-based leathers that can stand up to the quality of ours as well as the customer. And if you're buying something and you're foregoing true leather and you're going to go with a vegan version of it, it needs to feel really premium. So having that quality attached to it as well.
Thank you. Well, this has been a great conversation. And thank you, Katie. Thank you, Emily and Andy, and my co-hosts, Jenna and Kelly.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. And it was great meeting everyone. Thanks for letting us join.
Likewise.
Thank you, everybody. And this concludes our Fashion and Sustainability Summit this year. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I had a great time with you all. The Sustainability Summit is a collaboration between LIM College and Fashion Dex. Our sponsors are Text World New York City and Apparel Sourcing New York City. And I think it's only fitting that we close the summit with a note from Andrea Kennedy. Andrea?
Thank you so much, Monica. And thank you, Emily and Katie and Andy, who I think clicked off. But, you know, from what we just heard about the fair labor and ethical practices at Popsockets, where you're working, Emily, to minimize your footprints. And I love that you're working towards vegan material that are plant-based and not petroleum-based. That makes me so happy. Because even apple leather has got petroleum in it, right? And those environmentally preferred materials and design for disassembly strategies at Caleres and Dr. Scholl's that are affecting 15 brands. All these are purpose-driven and future-facing and urgent goals, practices, and strategies that these high-profile fashion and accessory companies are implementing to work towards an ethical, fair, fully sustainable, and just fashion, accessories, and textile business of the future that is healthy for all, that doesn't emit global greenhouse gases into the air, that is causing our warming atmosphere and our rising sea levels and our melting ice caps and all these severe storms and migration. And we really are an industry that has traditionally been resource abusive and excessive. And I love that we've learned so much about how to work towards healthier water, healthier soil, healthier air, and waste reduction and detoxification and everything that we talked about throughout these very amazingly a day. I've been sitting here since 8 a.m. So, so I just want to thank everyone. And we really need to use our voice when we're shopping. You know, all of us, even if we're in the industry, and all of you we're also consumers. So tell the brands that you love that you want them to be responsible, to assess their carbon footprints, reduce their carbon footprints, and work towards being future fashion. We can make it happen. So must we change? Yes. Can we change? Yes. The solutions exist. And thank you so much for spending this day with us. Thanks, Monica, and thanks, LIM and Fashion Dex. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
That was amazing. So exciting.